for our weekly Q&A. Yes, Q&A, yes. We're going to be asking the Q's, and the A's are going to come courtesy of our first ever HuffPost show guest.
Yeah, when we decided to do the show, we drew up a list of people we wanted, and our next guest was right near the top, just after Elvis, and he wasn't returning our calls. So this is the way we went.
So we're thrilled now to bring out one of the bright lights of American politics, the senior senator from Massachusetts and the author of the New York Times best-selling A Fighting Chance, which is now out in paperback. Thank you, Roy. Let's give a nice, warm HuffPost show welcome for Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Yes!
All right.
How are you?
Oh, it's good to see you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you. Please have a seat.
All right.
Fantastic. Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
You guys got it all here.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Real leather?
Yes. This is the real thing.
Okay,
We're
no.
fake, but that's real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not Naugahyde.
Not Naugahyde. We brought the
just
real
wanna
thing.
know.
Now,
Okay.
Senator, I got to tell you, when we told people around the office that you were going to be our first guest, the words we heard were like, my hero, my idol, the only politician who gives me goosebumps. I mean, really, you're a political rock star. So not that long ago, you were a law school professor. What does that do to one's brain to suddenly become a political rock star and get that kind of reception?
You know, the way I see it, I'm just doing the work I've been doing pretty much all of my grown-up life. And it pretty much grows out of what happened to me as a kid.
Yeah.
This is just one more place with one more set of tools to try to fight for the things I believe in. So, you know, it's kind of, you get up every day and you think, what can I do today to try to move the needle a little bit in the direction of, like I describe it in the book, giving our kids a fighting chance.
Absolutely. You mentioned the yes.
That's what it's, oh, that's nice.
You talk about the book, and the book, for me, is very compelling because you really mix the personal with the political. You talk about how your mission as an activist and as a politician is directly connected to your experiences growing up.
Yeah. Well, that's how it is for me. I mean, I wouldn't know how to separate those things. It's like separating part of who you are. You know, I start this book when I'm 12 years old. Yeah. And I describe it as the day I grew up. And it was, I'd grown up in a family that had had a lot of ups and downs financially. And my three older brothers are all off in the military. It's my mom and my dad. My dad's selling carpet. My mom's a stay-at-home mom. And my daddy had a heart attack. And it meant for our family what it means for a lot of families. There's no money coming in. The bills pile up. We lost the family station wagon, and we're about that far from losing our house. And I remember, you know, my parents, they're fighting. My mom's crying. This is going on for a long time. And finally, the day comes when I walk upstairs, and my mom's got her best dress out on the bed. Yeah. God bless her. And she's crying. She's talking to herself. She says, we are not going to lose this house. And she picks this dress up, and I'm trying to think, what's she doing with this dress out? I'm 12 years old, and this is the dress she wore to funerals. That's how I remember this dress. And she pulls this dress on. It's tight. She zips it up, and she puts on her high heels. She blows her nose, wipes her face, and she walks over to the Sears, and she gets a minimum wage job. And that minimum wage job saved our house, and it saved our family. And I always think of this as I am deeply grateful to have grown up in an America at a time when a minimum wage job would support a family of three. That was when we said this is important. And it starts there for me.
And the story, fighting is the right word, because, I mean, you've had to fight all your life. I mean, your mom didn't really want you to go to college. No. She thought you should stay home and have babies, do some of that.
And I want to say, not because my mom didn't want me to do the best I could, she just wanted me to be safe. Yeah. And my mom thought the best way a woman can be safe is she stays home. She marries a good provider.
Safe
God, did
what?
I hear that word.
You say safe. Safe from what?
Safe from having to put on your high heels and walk to the Sears and get a minimum wage job to save the house.
But even when you got married, right, you had the sort of the similar thing with your husband, and you said, I don't really want to stay in the kitchen. And in a way, you say in the book that this sort of broke up your first marriage, right?
Yeah. You know, I was married at 19. And, and And I think both my first husband and I were kind of surprised that by the time I was in my late 20s, I just wasn't the girl that he had married. And I was somebody else. I always want to say, I tried. I really did. I tried to stay home. I tried to cook. I set the kitchen on fire more than once.
Multiple fires.
Well, one year my daddy actually gave me a fire extinguisher for Christmas. It was a bad sign.
Yeah, when the fire department knows you, but hi,
That's
Elizabeth.
right. Hi, how you doing?
Not a good
And
sign.
how's it going? It's not a good sign.
Yeah.
But I did try, and it just, I just needed to do more and more pieces. And I grew up at a time things were opening up for women. And so I ended up, I wanted to be a school teacher. And I ended up after that, after Amelia was born, she's 2 years old, I headed off to law school. I mean, it was like the craziest thing in the world that I would go off to law school. But there were two things about it. One was there was a public law school nearby, Rutgers, God bless them, tuition less than $500 a semester.
$500 a semester.
Wow.
A time again when America was investing in opportunities for kids. And Amelia and I, we both had backpacks. And every morning we get up, we both put our little backpacks on. And I drop her off with the babysitter. And I'd go in and go to classes. And then I'd pick her up from the babysitter after I'd had my classes. And the key thing, any working parent will remember this one, was to keep her awake until we got home so I could put her down for a nap so I could study while she had her nap.
You can't blow the nap time in the car.
That's right. It's about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And I'm shaking her foot while I'm driving. I learned to drive a VW Beetle. I could drive it, shake the baby's foot, and shift all at once. It was a stick shift.
Wow.
But we did it. And she and I we were buds. And then her little brother came along, and, the three of us did it. And it really is a kind of over and over. My daddy ended up as a janitor. My mom worked that minimum wage job at Sears. I got to be a teacher. I then got to go to law school and be a lawyer. I got to be a professor, and I got to be a United States Senator. America's truly a great country. Yeah. I believe that. But I also never, ever forget, I grew up in an America that was investing in our kids, investing in the future, investing in opportunities. I got those things because America made sure that a minimum wage job would support a family of three, that there were public universities that were available to kids who didn't have a lot of money, that we were investing in an economy that was growing and creating jobs and opportunities for kids. And we've lost a big part of that. So for me...
Why have we lost that? Why have we lost that?
Oh, because I think we turned in a different direction. I'll describe it this way, just kind of the brief version. Yeah. Basically, from the Great Depression to about 1980, our vision of how we build a future was we said, first of all, there has to be a cop on the beat, not only on Main Street, but also on Wall Street. Level playing field. The second thing we said is we're going to invest in the future for our kids. Education, roads, bridges, power grids, the whole infrastructure. And third, we're going to build a big pipeline of ideas. We're going to invest in research and medical research and scientific research and engineering research, because that way our kids, shoot, they'll invent things we haven't even dreamed of. We did that from about 1935 to about 1980, and here's the deal. Man, it worked. Yeah. As our families got richer, our GDP went up. As our GDP went up, median family income went up. The 90% in America, not the top 10, the 90% got 70% of all of the wage growth in that time. We did better as a people. Then starting about 1980, you know what happened then?
What happened in 1980?
What happened in 1980?
What was that? It's a weird year. The Olympics, it was the Olympics, the boycott. That boycott ruined everything.
Killed the thing.
Yeah.
So you start in 1980, roughly. I mean, some of this starts moving in a little early, a little later. But there's a different vision. The Republicans say, wait a minute, there's another way to build a future. And their idea for building a future is first, fire the cops, not on Main Street, but on Wall Street, and just turn those big financial institutions loose. Let them paint a bullseye on the backside of every American family and figure out how they can make profits from doing it. And the second thing is they said, let's cut taxes for those at the top. And what that meant is there was less money, you guessed it, for education, for roads and bridges, for research. And the future begins to shrink for our kids. And so let me do those same numbers again. 1980 to 2012, the 90% that had gotten 70% of the wage growth earlier, you know how much they got in that time period?
How much?
Zero.
Zero wage growth.
Wow.
None. 100% of the wage growth from 1980 to 2012 went to the top 10% of Americans. This country now works for the top 10%. It works for those who hire lobbyists. It works for those who hire lawyers. It's just not working for American families.
You know, you're talking about Wall Street, as you are, you know, there's an amazing story here in the book. It strikes me that since the crash, Wall Street's never really lost its swagger, and if anything, they're more arrogant, and they have the "you can't touch us" attitude.
Yep.
And this is new to the paperback, and afterward, you tell the story of, let's say a discussion that you had with Jamie Dimon that turned into something a little bit more than that. That is emblematic of that. Could you tell us about that day?
So I'd been in the Senate for just a few weeks. Jamie Dimon comes by my office, and let's just say we get into a conversation about financial regulation. His point of view is there's too much. My point of view is there's too little, right? And we have a back and forth about it. It got a little heated. And at one point, I finally said to him in a fairly loud tone that I just think you guys are breaking the law on this particular point that we were talking about. And he relaxed, smiled, sat back, and said, so hit me with a fine. We can afford it.
Wow.
And
Oh, my God.
But I want you to understand, this isn't just one person or one big financial institution. HSBC, here is this giant bank that got caught laundering drug money. And they didn't get caught once laundering a dime bag of drug money. They got caught laundering it over years. In fact, their regulators said, whoa, you're laundering drug money. Stop doing that. and
Memo.
Right.
memo, quit doing that. And they kept on doing it.
Wow.
They made money laundering drug money. Finally, after 6 years of doing this that we know of, they got hit, please, I'm glad you're sitting down. I want you to fall over, with a fine. And not one executive, not one employee got charged with breaking the law. They all went home, they slept well in their beds, and it's raises and bonuses all around.
Here's what I'm trying to understand, though, Senator. I mean, you said you had this conversation with Jamie Dimon a few weeks into your term as a senator. You have colleagues who've been in the Senate who are Democrats for term after term after term. You're one of the few people taking them on. How much of a challenge is it to take them on when both parties are backed by big money, both people seem to owe a debt to Wall Street, and both people are scared?
Well, you know, you ask it as how hard a challenge is. I mean, how can you not take them on? I don't know any other way to do this. I didn't run for the United States Senate so that I could try to make the lives of the biggest financial institutions even better. And look, I want to be clear about this. All I'm looking for, I just want two things from the biggest financial institutions in this country. The first one is don't cheat people. That's what the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is.
Right.
You know,
Just
Senator.
don't cheat them. No more of the tricks and traps buried in the fine print. No more not following the law on just the basic products you put out. Mortgages, credit cards, whatever it is. And the second thing is no more too big to fail. Don't wreck our economy. Those are the only two things I'm asking for from the biggest financial institutions in this country. And all I can say is they are still spending millions to fight back so that they don't get regulations, so there's no accountability. And that's what this is all about. They don't want any accountability. They want to go off and run their businesses the way they want to run them and say, hey, we'll let you know how it works out.
And I know there was a story this week that, I mean, when you do things like you do, like going on the Senate floor and saying we need to break up Citibank, they say they're not that happy. And not only do they say they're not going to give you money, which is a given, they say they're not going to give it to any of your Democratic colleagues. So when that happens, I know you kind of say, yeah, but do they come to you? Do your colleagues come to you and say, Elizabeth, please, please.
You're killing me.
We need the money.
No, nobody has. Nobody has. But I do want to say this. I want you to think about the arrogance of big financial institutions saying to the other Democrats, shut that woman up. Just get her to just be quiet and stop giving us such a hard time. There's a chutzpah around that that just really makes you say, we got a problem in this country, and it tells me that the problem is not just that Washington works for those who've got money and power, that it works for those who can hire lobbyists, but boy, those who have money and power expect it to work for them, and they're going to demand some accountability from our government rather than our government on behalf of the people demanding some accountability from the financial institutions.
No, absolutely.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, they love you. They really do. They really do.
It's right.
Not too many politicians speak that honestly about any of this stuff. But let's move from domestic to foreign policy just for a moment, because this has obviously been a big week, in Middle Eastern affairs in particular.
Yep.
We just signed in Iran, or we've reached an agreement on Iran, some sort of pact. What do you make of this pact? Because on the one hand, you have Netanyahu saying this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to the state of Israel, and you have the White House, which is saying this is a move forward to prevent violence and to really move the global community forward.
Yeah. So look. I think everybody starts in the same place, and that is it's critically important that Iran not have a nuclear weapon, that would be a danger to Israel, it would be a danger to the region, it would be a danger to the world. And so we're looking for the right way to get there. I think that Secretary Kerry has really gotten out there and just done a really, really tough job and done it well, to try to pull all this together to see if there isn't a way to get to a negotiated solution. Because here's the bottom line. Finding a negotiated solution, something that works, something that doesn't involve trusting, something that involves verifying that Iran is not moving toward developing a nuclear weapon, that is our best promise in the region. And so far, when everyone says, oh, I don't like this deal, not everyone, certainly, the people who do say it, the real question is, and what's the alternative here? What have you got as the next best move? So I'm cautiously hopeful on this. I want to see what comes out in the details. We all know the devil's in the details.
Absolutely.
And Kerry himself has made clear it's possible it won't all work, that we won't get it all the way across the finish line. But, there's some good signs at this point that there may be a negotiated solution here.
Wow. Should the Senate have to vote on this?
So at some point, the Senate will certainly be involved in it. But right now, we're in the position, the sanctions are in place, and the president has authority to work with those sanctions depending on what happens over time. So I think this is one that's going to evolve a little bit over time. But the Senate will certainly have. It already has had a role to play.
Some of that role, though, has been a little tricky. Let's talk to Senator Cotton for a minute.
Boy, I should say, but I do.
Write a little letter.
That's right. Boy.
Google Translate the Farsi. It works. It's very well, yeah.
But there is something to remember about this that in a larger global perspective, and that is that we saw sanctions really work. We think about what are the tools in the toolbox? How is it that we try to have more security in the world? How is it that we try to make this world safer for ourselves, safer for our allies, safer for our good friends, safer for democracy? How do we do that? I think we have to pause for a minute and underline that we learn through this experience that economic sanctions, not just from the United States, but from the United States and countries all around the world saying, on that one we agree. Iran should not have nuclear sanctions, and countries all around the world are willing to enforce those sanctions. That's what brought Iran to the negotiating table, and that's what got us as far as we have gotten in the negotiations to this point. We want to keep that in mind going forward.
Now, Senator, I know with the book you've been touring a little bit this week. We saw you make some media appearances. And, you know, it seems to us that there is a certain question that is a zombie question that refuses to die. Let's take a look.
Are you going to run for president?
Buzz, 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 president, president, president.
There's nothing that could change.
If Hillary didn't run, you might give it a shot.
Why don't you want to run for president?
There's no way you're going to run in 2016.
I've heard you say no.
You constantly say you're not running for president. Does that mean you will not run for president?
Are you unequivocally and categorically saying, I'm not running for president in 2016?
I'm not running. I'm not running for president. Like I said, I'm not running for president. You can ask this a whole lot of different ways, but the key is I'm not running for president.
Possibly I'm beating a dead horse here.
Senator.
Why are you being so evasive?
Yes, the coyness.
I don't get it.
Yes,
Yeah.
You know, no, but all kidding aside, you know, it's not just these journalists who are trying to get a headline. There is a movement, you know, where the Boston Globe had a very impassioned endorsement, and we know that Move On, you know, has Run Warren Run, hundreds of thousands of people signing the petition. You know, Larry Lessig wrote an open letter, and we actually asked people to send in questions on video and to our community, and one of them sent this in. If you're a movie fan, you might recognize this gentleman.
I wanted to ask you, on behalf of many, 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 many Americans, to reconsider running for president of the United States. There's not many people, politically speaking, that are willing to take on the battles that you are specifically, whether it's the debt, student debt, to the insidious and predatory practices of the banks. On behalf of the future generations of the United States, would you please, please not say no to running, at least being in a primary, and take your place, your rightful place in the history of this great nation.
Now, you know, you know he plays the Hulk. He plays the Hulk, and you know what they say about the Hulk, you don't want to see him mad, you know.
Yeah.
No, but putting that aside, there is this passion, and I think it speaks beyond just you running. It speaks to the idea that people have a longing, and they have a feeling that there's something that's not being discussed, that's missing from the political discourse in 2016. So not talking about you in specific, but what can we do to harness that energy, that passion, that longing?
So, you know, this is something I talk about in my book, A Fighting Chance. I talk about how I came to the fight and the different ways I learned to fight. And now the good people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts have sent me to Washington, and I now have a whole new set of tools to fight with. The way I see this is that we have to fight around a set of issues, and that we can't wait. This is about building a future. Student loans. You know, it is obscene that the United States government is making billions of dollars in profits off the backs of our kids. We need to refinance our student loan debt down for our students. We just need to do that. And bear with me for just a minute, because we got to talk about these. We need to have equal pay for equal work. It's time to pass an equal pay for equal work statute in the Senate and House. No one should work full-time and still live in poverty. We need to raise the minimum wage. We can't have a minimum wage where people work full-time and still live in poverty. We need to protect Social Security going forward and expand Social Security. We know key pieces. We need to hold Wall Street accountable.
You know, this would make a great campaign platform. I'm just saying. You know, I'm just saying.
But this is what we all need to step up and make our voices heard on.
Why is there no mainstream voice doing that? I mean, this seems like what would normally be a Democratic platform, but it seems like every election cycle, fewer and fewer prominent Democrats are making the case for these things.
You know, now there I'm going to disagree with you. I think that Democrats are stepping up and talking about this, and I want to do this both ways. Partly, look at some of my Senate colleagues. Look, I know everyone talks about we got beaten bad in 2014, but I want to remind you where we didn't get beaten bad. that Jeff Merkley stepped up early. Remember how he was supposed to be in trouble on that race in Oregon?
Yeah.
Some people said, now the pundits, but he stepped up and said, I'm proud of what I stand for. He ran those ads on student loans, right? He talked about minimum wage. He talked about Social Security. Al Franken. There was a question around Al Franken. Remember how close he was that first time around? This time, he had that race put away months ahead. Why? He put it away because he got out there and he stood up for what he believed in. He said so to the people of Minnesota, and they said, that's right, I'm with this guy. So it's partly, we got folks in the Senate standing up. Jeanne Shaheen, boy, she made a strong case and beat that guy. Yeah. But it's also the rest of the world. You know, Washington truly is a bubble. And what really matters, if we really want to see change, it's going to be change that's going to come in large part from the outside, from enough people around this country saying, this matters to me, and I'm going to hold Washington accountable. Look at the example. The Republicans shut down the government, and people across this country said, no, that is wrong. We want our government up and running, and you guys back down. And in fact, that's what the Republicans did. They had to back down on that. Student loans. A couple of years ago, who was talking about student loans? Who was talking about the obscene profits that the government was making? And today, people all around the country are talking about it. People have signed petitions. Go to, right, ElizabethWarren.com. We've got a petition on our website on this. People are engaged in it. And I'm not talking about a handful. I'm talking about literally hundreds of thousands of people have put their shoulder behind, I'm willing to step up. I'll put my name on a petition. You think it doesn't matter to put your name on a petition? It does matter. People in Washington pay attention to this. I'm willing to make calls. I'm willing to write emails. I'm willing to show up when that guy who says he represents my state, but he's willing to take care of billionaires and not take care of people who are trying to get an education. I'm willing to stand up and ask a question the next time he shows up for a town forum. I'm willing to go to his office and ask him a question. That's how we're going to get change. We don't get it in a single day. We don't get it in a single week. We don't get it with a single voice. We get it by making each other stronger because we believe that when we work together, we will build a better future for ourselves, for our children, and for our grandchildren. That's what it's about.
Senator Warren, we'll do it. We know that you're out here visiting your family for the holidays. We can't thank you enough for coming by. Everybody, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You guys are fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Right
What
this way.
fun.
Thank you.
Senator Warren's book, A Fighting Chance, is available now in paperback. Hey, thanks for watching.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click here for more videos.
And make sure to catch new episodes Friday at 9 p.m. on HuffingtonPost.com.